2 of the second video in my series of 7 videos under the title The Future of Everything. And this is about digital copyright. So in the first video I tried to lay out a history of copyright and how it relates to law. And what I'd like to get into here is something that I think is more significant than any attempts to commonize copyright, and that is the countervailing view in law that to have a right over a copy you must be able to produce a copy, and this copy would then be a finding in law in the direction of creating discovery that this is not the case, in fact, with digital computer randomly accessible memory data. Okay, so that's kind of a long-winded thing to say. Ask yourself this: under a law of copyright, is it possible to copyright a compact disc recording? Generally we would say yes, but why? Well, as the disc itself is a copy of the original, it is possible and was instituted into law. Note that this is not common law, with the invention of phonographic records. And that is, of course, where the recording industry pulls its weight in this area of copyright law. So thus the question is a matter of creating finding and discovery somehow on computers between A, RAM, or randomly accessible memory, and B, ROM, or read-only memory, where ROM is copyrightable, RAM is not copyrightable. To copyright RAM, then, one must find copy where that copy resides in time on computer technology. This is very critical because it is fundamentally unique to computers. But we find this we find inklings of this, I guess I should say, with 1/8" magnetic tape media, blank tapes, which is it is RAM, or randomly accessible. But to draw it out, the time it takes for a copy of a record to be made or to deteriorate over time would be the central issue leading to any discovery of any sort of quote-unquote digital copyright. So a record like books on a printing press, deteriorates over a certain time, and this guides copyright law in the direction of how long it should be. Copyright is not considered to be a right that exists, therefore, in perpetuity. Thus, a corporation like Disney is always extending copyright past the time period now exceeding half a century in time. Since the write and read time of copy on computers is measured essentially in periods of 1 second, to copyright any creation means to control a process of copying and not the traditional role of copyright, which is to physically enforce the control of an artifact such as a book item or a phonographic record item. There's no item here. The issue that started with magnetic tape was not a matter of timing between reading and writing what you put on the tape in the technology, but rather simply the technological ability to make your own recording. This ability never existed before and is the equivalent of running your own personal printing press. So with that, how do you use copyright law if everyone has their own printing press? Well, law is stuck on this rather contentious historic point between a mass empowered with the individual ability to create their own copy and the reality of digital copy, that it creates and destroys copy in matters of seconds on top of individual control, such as what we saw with tape media a few decades ago. Copyright applies insofar as the control of copyright is legalized, assuming that the state is not inept enough to see past issues of unenforceability. This control of copy being legalized must also apply to copyright in terms of it being enforced. You can't just have law here, you have to have some kind of backbone to it. This can only be accomplished today by controlling the ability for the individual user to create copy on their own computer.